That morning, before the sun had even risen high in the sky, I stepped out of my house, my mind filled with plans for a typical workday. The streets were bustling, the sounds of car horns and people passing by, blending together into the familiar symphony of the city. I drove as I always did, without a single thought of caution, believing that life simply followed its safe, predictable course. But then, in a brief yet haunting moment, everything changed. Another car came speeding out of the intersection without any signs of stopping. I didn't have time to react, and the car collided with mine. The impact was intense. Glass shattered, and my body was thrown forward in an instant. Time seemed to stand still. All sounds froze, leaving only the thudding of my heartbeat. I saw shards of glass flying everywhere, saw my own terrified eyes reflected in the rearview mirror, and then came the dizziness, the loss of consciousness. Before my eyes was a dark, cold void. Before the pain could set in, a deep fear enveloped my mind. I thought about my family, about the things I hadn't done, about my unfulfilled dreams. And in that moment, a gentle voice echoed somewhere in my heart, a voice that did not belong to this world, but brought strange comfort amid the storm of life. That was the fateful day, the day I faced the door of life and death. The day my life began a new and unforgettable chapter. The silence after the accident was suddenly broken by the screeching of ambulance sirens on the crowded streets. The sound was like an emergency alarm, pulling me from the darkness of unconsciousness back to the chaotic and urgent reality. The ambulance sped through every turn, its red lights flashing and siren blaring, forcing everyone on the road to make way. Inside me, each heavy breath intertwined with pain and despair. I felt every powerful vibration as the car raced forward, carrying my life to the hospital. I couldn't see clearly around me, but I heard the hurried footsteps, the voices of doctors and nurses, and the steady yet tense sounds of machinery. They pulled me out of the mangled vehicle, gently yet skillfully. Every passing minute felt like a battle against death. I felt helpless, unable to do anything but close my eyes tightly and pray for a miracle. Fear rose with every breath, and my heart ached as I thought of my loved ones, the things I hadn't said, the dreams I hadn't fulfilled. The doctors and nurses quickly pushed me into the emergency room. Orders were shouted continuously. Low blood pressure, prepare for a blood transfusion, intubate. Everything happened so fast, so chaotic, that I felt like I was being swept into a whirlwind with no escape. Under the bright white lights of the emergency room, in a daze between life and death, I felt a deep sense of loneliness, alone among the cold medical equipment, among the people fighting to save my life. I didn't know how much longer I could endure, but deep within my soul, a soft voice kept calling me not to give up. No matter how chaotic the outside world was, there was still a glimmer of hope. When the door to the intensive care unit closed behind me, the outside world seemed to disappear completely. I was alone, lying among the flickering lights of medical equipment, the steady hum of the ventilator, and the constant beeping of the heart monitor. Everything felt like a dream, suspended between life and death. My body was so weak that I could barely feel my own limits. Pain, exhaustion, and helplessness built up with every faint breath. Each muscle spasm woke me up, but not enough to pull me out of my daze. In that moment of uncertainty, memories flood back like a slow-motion film. Images of family, friends, smiles, happy moments intertwined with mistakes and failures. Everything seems clearer than ever, making me wonder if I have enough time to fix everything. I felt as though I were standing on a fragile edge, where a single misstep could send me plummeting into an abyss of eternal darkness. Each heartbeat was a fierce battle between life and death, between light and shadow. Just as I thought I would be swept away, a strange sensation crept into my heart. Not fear, but an unusual sense of peace. A gentle voice echoed somewhere in my mind, like a soft yet powerful whisper. I am here. Do not fear. This voice did not come from the physical world, but seemed like a sacred presence comforting me amidst the storm of life. It helped me cling to a fragile hope, a faint glimmer of light in the darkness. That was the moment I began to realize that, even on the brink of death, I was not alone. Amidst the confusion and chaos in my body, I suddenly heard a whisper, a sound that did not come from the physical world, but seemed to emanate from the depths of my soul. The voice was gentle and soft, not screaming or threatening, but like a cool breeze blowing through the stormy waves in my heart. "I am here. Do not be afraid," the voice echoed, penetrating every pain and fear. Each word was like a stream of cool water, washing away the panic and despair that were surging within me. I had never believed in anything beyond the material world, never heard stories of miracles or the presence of a higher power. But in that moment, my heart could not deny the truth of that voice. A strange peace spread throughout my body, gentle and warm, as if I were being embraced by loving arms. In that moment, I felt a distinct difference, a miraculous calm amid the storm of pain and panic. I no longer felt alone or hopeless, but as if an invisible force was lifting me up and keeping me alive. Vague images began to appear, not painful memories, but scenes filled with light and hope, like a promise that I would not be alone on the journey ahead. The whispering voice did not stop at words, but also gave me a small amount of faith, the belief that I could overcome, that I could live again, and that I could find meaning in every breath I took. Although I did not fully understand, I began to question the meaning of life and the existence of a powerful being who was present and caring for me in my time of greatest need. In my prolonged delirium, as my body was about to leave this world, a strange scene appeared before my eyes. A warm light, not glaring but gentle, spreading throughout the space around me. The light was unlike anything I had ever seen. It not only illuminated the outside but also penetrated deep into my soul, dispelling all fear and pain. In that light, I felt a hand reaching out, a soft hand, yet powerful and loving. It seemed that the hand was not just physical, but the embodiment of a supernatural power touching me, bringing healing and peace. I cannot see the face or shape of the owner of that hand, but I know that its presence gives me a feeling of absolute safety, as if I am being held in a protective embrace. With each passing minute, the pain in my body gradually subsided, and my breathing became deeper and more even. There was no longer the sound of machines rushing, no more chaos outside, only silence and warmth spreading throughout every corner of my being. I no longer felt alone on this perilous journey. Though I was still confused, still filled with fear and doubt, the light in that hand were clear evidence that a greater power was present, caring for and supporting me. Amid the darkness of the hospital and the fragility of life, I began a new journey, a journey of faith, hope, and miracles. In the quiet space and gentle light, that hand slowly touched the most painful part of my body, my heart. The touch was not strong or loud, but it contained a power beyond human understanding. Instantly, a warm energy spread throughout my body, like a gentle flame burning brightly from deep within. The intense pain that had been burning in my chest just moments before suddenly subsided, gently washing away all suffering. My breaths became deeper and more even, no longer ragged or hurried, but flowing like a gentle melody of life. The heart monitor beeped steadily, more accurately than ever before, signaling a miraculous revival. The doctors and nurses continued to work tirelessly beside me, but inside me something supernatural had happened, a miracle that could not be explained by science or logic. I felt clearly that I had been touched by a power greater than myself, a divine force holding my life in its hands. From that moment on, everything began to change. Life was no longer a distant miracle, but a reality flowing through every vein, every breath I took. I knew I had been given a second chance, a new beginning full of hope. Though many things remained unclear, I believed that touch had not only saved me from death, but also opened a journey of faith I had never imagined. As my eyes slowly opened, the world around me appeared hazy in the dim light of the hospital room. I felt the warmth of the blanket covering me, the soft footsteps echoing on the floor, and the worried whispers of the medical staff standing by my bed. For the first time since the accident, I knew I was alive. This realization made my heart race, not out of fear or pain, but out of overwhelming joy and deep gratitude. A miracle had happened, something wonderful that I had only dared to dream about in my wildest dreams. Every sensation in my body, every breath I took, reminded me of the value of life. I could hear the machine supporting me still running, my heart beating steadily in my chest. Clear proof that I had crossed the fragile line between life and death. The doctors approached me, their eyes filled with surprise and joy. "We didn't think you would wake up so quickly." But in my heart, I knew that it wasn't just science and medicine that saved me, but also some invisible power, a supernatural force that I had never recognized before. I felt as though I had been given a new opportunity, not just life, but a meaningful and hopeful existence. I knew I would not waste this precious gift. That moment of awakening was not merely a physical resurrection, but the beginning of a profound spiritual journey where I began to view life and faith in a completely new light. As my health gradually stabilized, my mind began to clear, but the big questions remained unanswered, echoing in my head. Why did I survive? Was it luck, medicine, or something more miraculous? Every moment in the emergency room, every gentle touch I felt, remains vividly etched in my memory, making it impossible for me to dismiss it as mere coincidence or something science could easily explain. I sensed a supernatural presence, an invisible force that had kept me from death. I began to wonder, who saved me from the brink of death? Was it a miracle, a messenger from above, or a sacred voice guiding me across that fragile boundary? However, the answer seemed elusive. Those around me could only speak of the attentive care of the doctors and nurses and the relentless efforts of the medical team. But deep within me, there was something that transcended all those explanations. These questions no longer confused me, but became the motivation for me to search for a deeper truth, a truth I had never dared to face, a belief that could change my whole life. I knew I was standing at an important crossroads, between continuing to live in uncertainty or opening my heart to something greater than I had ever imagined. When I woke up, not only had my health been restored, but something else special had happened. An encounter that completely changed my perspective in my life. A close friend, someone I had rarely shared my spiritual life with, came to visit me at the hospital. He not only brought words of encouragement, but also told me about the days he had spent praying for me while I was in the emergency room. Those hours when I was completely unconscious, unaware of anyone around me. He told me that when he heard about my serious accident, he and many others had knelt down together to pray, asking God to protect and preserve my life. I believe it was those prayers that brought the miracle, keeping you alive, he said with a sincere and hopeful look in his eyes. I sat there listening, feeling both confused and moved. Before, I had never really cared about or believed in faith, religion, or miracles. But now, what I had experienced, the gentle touch, the warm light, the whisper in my mind, made it impossible for me to deny that a sacred presence had been with me during my most critical moments. That encounter opened a new door in my heart, a door leading to a search and discovery of faith, of the Savior I had never known before. From that moment on, I began a new journey, not only to recover physically, but also to find a deeper meaning in my life, a journey of faith and hope. After that meaningful encounter, a desire arose in my heart to learn more about the faith that my friend had shared with me. I began to ask many questions. Who is God? Does he really care about my life? Can the promises I have heard bring real hope and healing? I started reading basic materials about faith, listening to stories about the life of Jesus and his message to humanity. Every page, every story made me feel as though I was being guided by a new light, a path not only leading to eternal life, but also freeing me from the burdens of the past and the fears of the present. I joined small groups, listened to sermons and testimonies from people who had gone through similar experiences, but had been transformed by faith. They spoke of miracles, peace that defied logic, and the strength to overcome life's challenges. Gradually, I realized that faith is not just a dry system of beliefs, but a living relationship with someone I can trust and rely on. I felt a deep urge to open my heart to him, to no longer live in fear or loneliness. The journey of discovery was not always easy. I still had moments of doubt and questions that remained unanswered, but I knew I was on the right path toward a greater truth, an unconditional love that I had heard about but never experienced. Amidst the turmoil and fear, I sat down for the first time, closed my eyes and spoke to God, with the most sincere words from the bottom of my heart. I had never thought I would pray before. Not because I didn't believe, but because I always thought I had to fight and control everything on my own. But now, standing on the fragile line between life and death, I realized that human strength is limited. I needed someone greater, someone who could bring peace to my soul and strength to keep going. My prayer was simple, without embellishment, but it contained all the truth and weakness of my heart. Lord, if you are real, please save me. Please guide me through this storm. I don't know what to do, but I place my trust in you. At that moment, a strange peace washed over me. Not the absence of pain or difficulty, but the feeling of being embraced and protected, even though everything was still unclear. That prayer became a turning point in my life, a door opening to a deeper journey of faith, a transformation not only in my body, but also in my soul. From that moment on, I was no longer alone on my journey of healing. I knew that there was someone who was always listening, always walking with me, and always loving me, even in my weakest moments. After that first prayer, I felt a gentle but profound change in my heart. No longer filled with anxiety, fear, and despair, I began to find a strange peace, a new hope creeping into every corner of my life. My mind was no longer dominated by endless doubts and uncertainties. Instead, I began to understand that life was not just a series of days spent struggling with illness and pain, but a meaningful journey with a purpose, guided by a loving God. I spend more time reading the Bible, listening to sermons, and attending prayer meetings. With each passing day, I realize that I am gradually stepping out of the darkness of despair and toward the light of faith and life. Things are not always easy. There are times when I still feel tired and face difficulties in my life and health. But now I no longer feel alone. I know that I have an invisible source of strength that accompanies me, supports me, and helps me overcome every challenge. This change did not come from outside, but first from deep within my soul, from forgiveness, love, and an inexplicable peace. I realized that this was not just a story of physical resurrection, but also a journey of spiritual healing, an encounter with the one who saved me from darkness and brought light into my life. After all the experiences, the dark days, and the miracles that have happened in my life, I realized that I could no longer live as I had before. Not just for myself, not just to exist. I decided to live with a new purpose, a meaningful mission, to bear witness to the salvation and boundless love that God has given me. Life is a precious gift, and I want to use every day, every breath, to share my story, to inspire and bring hope to those who are lost and desperate. I began participating in faith groups, sharing my testimony at church and community gatherings. Each time I recounted my story, I felt strength and healing, not only for those listening, but also for myself. Testifying is not just a duty, but a joy, a way for me to respond to God's grace. I know that the journey ahead will be challenging, but I am no longer afraid, because I have a companion who sustains and guides me. My life is now shaped by faith and love. I no longer live for myself, but to spread light, life, and hope to those who need it most. Every day I wake up is an opportunity to testify that miracles still exist and that God's love is still at work in people's lives. The journey from darkness to light, from despair to hope, has brought me to a meaningful destination, where I realize that every day is not only a gift, but also an opportunity to live in deep gratitude. I thank God for saving me from danger, healing my body and soul, and giving me a new life, a life full of meaning, love, and hope. Gratitude is not just a momentary emotion, but a way of life, a motivation to keep going and bear witness to that boundless love. I am grateful for every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of my existence in this world. Grateful for my loved ones and friends who have always been by my side and loved me. Grateful for the miracles that have happened and continue to happen every day in my life. I invite you, the one reading these words, to open your heart to the new life that God offers. No matter what circumstances you are in, no matter how hopeless you feel, I believe that there is an infinite source of strength ready to touch you, heal you, and bring you out of the darkness. Let that miracle begin today. Let faith and love guide you to a life full of hope and peace. The journey from darkness to light has shown me one thing: no matter how dark the circumstances may be, miracles and new life can always begin with faith. I was not only saved from a life-threatening situation, but also found purpose and deep meaning in my life. And I believe that you too can find that miraculous change if you open your heart to receive it. If you feel the strength and hope from this story, click subscribe now to join me in sharing more stories of faith, miracles, and new life. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss any inspiring videos.